This is part 2 of a Q&A series where I answer your animal anatomy questions for drawing anthropomorphic characters. We're going to figure out how to draw legs, arms, and multiple limbs based on human anatomy. If you haven't watched the previous video in this series, see the video description for the links.
This one is from Red Fox Studios.
This is a very helpful tutorial, but I'm still having trouble drawing hooves and learning the anatomy. Can you do tutorial branching from this one that explains the basics of hooves and paw pad proportions, and also one about how to add extra limbs to anatomy, like extra arms on the body or legs? Yeah, of course. So, hooves are just big nail, right? Hooves are just big nail, paws are just toes. So there's no real quote-unquote anatomy to it. A hoof is shaped like a puck, and paws are just toes that are built to have more pressure put onto them at all times. This is like the front leg. The back leg would be more like something like that. So this is how you would, generally draw a horse leg, right? A hoof, again, is just like a big hockey puck, essentially. But in terms of like the anatomy of how they actually connect to the leg and how that works, it is one big nail. So if I took like a person's leg and put it into the anatomy of a horse, it's like the rest of these are bending, and it's like you have one like toenail being touched on the ground. Let me just trace over a horse really quickly. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. So if this one, a leg of 1 for our thigh, 2 for our calf, 3 for the actual foot itself, and 4 for the nail. Same deal up here. If it was like an arm, this would be like the upper arm, this would be the forearm, this would be like our palm of our hand, essentially, and this is like one finger, right? That's kind of how you want to think of it when it comes to like a horse. If we're talking about paw pads, if we notice here, right? Yeah, they're pretty funky looking when they've got fur and pads and whatever, but this is the structure underneath. You notice how it kind of just looks like a hand, right? So paws work really similarly in where if we have, just a hand, a paw is just that, but it is the toes that we are seeing the most of, right? And then a thumb, quote unquote, is all the way back here. We don't really see that much. It's kind of just off to the side in the back there. Because remember, digitigrades are walking on their toes, right? The palm of their hand, the metacarpals, are going a bit farther back. It's why we see like dogs and cats, and they like have their feet like this. These are like our little fingers on the ground here, and the middle of the paw is like back here. So our thumb is kind of back here, right? So this is like the best way I can describe it, right? It is the same as a hand because we are both mammals. Things are just shifted around in one way or another. If you're looking for a platform to post commissions or find artists to bring your new ideas to life, ArtDen is the perfect place. Whether you're new to commissioning or a seasoned pro, ArtDen makes it easy to connect, manage orders, and securely accept payments all in one place. Download the app today and start creating with artists. In terms of more arms on the body, there's a couple ways that you can add extra limbs onto the body. First way is you can add another girdle. If you don't know what the girdle is, we have a couple of them. This is our shoulder girdle and our pelvic girdle, and these are the things that hold our arms and legs in place. So one way that you could do it is just by adding another girdle. If we want to add another shoulder girdle, we kind of need another rib cage. So you could always stack another rib cage on top because you just need an extension of the spine. So you could do that and then just add another shoulder girdle. I've seen some artists do this. I like doing this personally. I kind of like the look of a really, really long torso. So if we had like a person, he has one set of arms, and then it's almost like the torso kind of restarts, or it's kind of caterpillar-esque. 2 sets of arms. Obviously, you could shrink it down if you want. Maybe you just want to make one super long rib cage. That is also a possibility. This is how this one would look. 1 set of arms, 2 set of arms. But again, that does require you to sort of extend the upper torso a bit. It's not as long or as defined as this guy, but it is still like longer. Depends on what you're hoping for. So that's one way you could do it. Another way you could try, maybe place another set of fossa around the back. So you essentially are not recreating the entire shoulder girdle, you're just creating a second set of scapula almost. So this part of our scapula, right, the glenoid fossa is where we connect our humerus to, right? So what some people do is they kind of just add a second one in. They just add a second glenoid fossa and create like a second attachment for another arm. If you've ever seen like how Machamp works, right? You've got one set of arms here and then another one directly above like this. So they have added another glenoid fossa to the scapula. So the torso can stay the same length, but we have a second set of arms kind of coming out the back, which just means that we have created a second attachment point on our scapula, right? So that's another way that you could handle arms specifically. For legs, rearrangement of the pelvis. If you wanted another pelvic girdle, right, it doesn't really make sense to stack them on top of each other like this, so you might want to rearrange them. This is kind of a weird one, but maybe you want to like flip it so it's like the sacrum is in the center, but the pelvis sort of branches off in the center, so it's almost like they're facing back to each other. You have one femur here, another femur here, another femur here, another femur here. This might be how I like work with like a spider person, like if the bottom half is supposed to be more spider-esque. So it's like he has like one set of legs like this, another set of legs kind of like that actually. So it does like this sort of, because it's almost like, again, like these two parts are like facing back to each other. So you could totally do it this way if you wanted. Again, this is pretty weird, but I sort of dig it. You know, it's kind of, it is kind of giving spider, kind of giving octopus, right? So that's one way you could do it. And the last way is for legs, and legs, you know, is doing the centaur, right? So cut the body in half and treat it like it's just been shunted into the anatomy of another character, right? We have a centaur video that focuses, I think, more on horses, but this one can work with genuinely anything. I really want a centaur character where their bottom half is an alligator. So if we took like a gator, it would be like that. And again, this works for every animal. I've seen some people do ostrich, where it's like you have like the upper torso of the person going on here, and then you actually have the wings of like ostrich or flamingo or something to that effect, and it goes like this. You're essentially just extending the spine, like the spine starts here and you have another spine that goes into another rib cage down here, right? You're essentially doing the same thing as this one, like this idea right here. You're kind of doing the same thing, but now you're doing it with legs instead. So you can get really creative with this one. You can get really funky. Videos like these wouldn't be possible without our awesome patrons and YouTube members who help our mission of making arts education free and accessible for everyone. Become a member today and unlock cool perks like exclusive chats with our creators, access to class recordings, and critiques from instructors. So this next one, we got a lot of comments about this. We'll show up 3 right now, where they're kind of just talking about like how you can make Plantigrade Anthro legs work with things that are normally Digitigrade. Because I think, what did I say in the video? It was like, Plantigrade is not happening on people or something like that. By drawing it with just these two and then the paws, we're removing our heel. We're removing a joint that's in there. So you're basically just completely removing it. That's why it is incorrect in a more scientific anatomical way. Kind of narrow-minded of me. But funny things about videos being old is that I can be wrong. And I think that it's important to acknowledge that, especially after a couple of years. Artists, we grow, we learn, we change. So I think it's important to acknowledge that, yeah, I'm reliable, but I can make mistakes too. So, very interesting. Scientifically, a big difference between Plantigrade and Digitigrade legs is how much weight they can hold. So if you've ever seen like a cat, cats are Digitigrade. They're standing on their paws, right? Their toes, essentially. Right, again, let me do the leg example. If I was to draw like how it would be if we were walking as if we were Digitigrade the whole time, we would kind of constantly be walking on our tippy toes like this. Right, so this back part right here is like the heel of the cat, essentially. Right? And when we see a cat sort of sit up or stand up on 2 legs, a cat on their hind legs, the way that they sit comfortably is like this. Right? They sit back on their haunches is a way that you would say that. Again, this right here is like the heel of the cat. So by them standing back up, they become Plantigrade in a way, right? So realistically, if we wanted to work with Plantigrade legs on something that is Digitigrade and translate that into an Anthro character, yes, you could totally do that if you wanted to. Digitigrades are constantly standing on their toes. With 4 Digitigrade legs, the weight of this person, of this cat, is distributed better, right? 4 legs on the ground at constant times means that they can walk on their toes at all times. If you've ever walked up the stairs on all 4s, right, you're probably not walking on your heels, you're probably walking on your toes and your fingers, right? Because that is how weight is distributed. It's distributed a little easier by you standing on your toes. If they did stand up, that weight is no longer distributed as well, right? So again, cats, dogs, if you see them sit up, right, they're usually on their their haunches because they become plantigrade in order to distribute that weight in a way that is more comfortable. So TLDR, yes, it actually is more realistic if we turn the Digitigrade legs plantigrade by comparison to if we had a purely bipedal character, right? In the end, right, it is aesthetic choice, whether we choose to make a character Digitigrade or if we choose to make them plantigrade, right? We're doing it for fantasy, not for realism. Were there any questions that weren't answered in this video? Do you like this kind of responding video format? Be sure to let us know in the comments down below. Join a virtual class in seconds and learn live from professional artists. Enjoy weekly assignments, individual guidance, and real-time feedback on your artwork so you can create like a fearless illustrator. If you learned something new, please like and share this with a fellow art nerd. If you love receiving quality and free arts education, subscribe. Here's a couple other videos you can check out next.